What is going on, everybody? We are back looking over some lists. If you didn't watch the Imperial Digimon video, this is going to be a little short series where we are just going over some topping lists to look them over, see how the decks are progressing, look at ratios and whatnot. So here we have, I think, 16 or 17 deck lists that did top or win events. And then we have our spreadsheet over here, which has all of the cards in there. We're going to be able to have the ratios, such as if it's a 4 count in the deck, all that. You can always go ahead and, if you don't know what a card does, you can click the link. It's going to take you over here, and you can check out what all the cards do. But with that being said, we are just going to go through a couple of the lists on this video. But the link for the spreadsheet, as well as the link for all these lists, are going to be pinned in the comment down below. So if you want that, be sure to go check that out. But let's get on into some lists. Alright, this first list that we're going over is the one that won the Card Market Regional with 8 wins, 0 loss, 1 tie. Did essentially tie with another Imperial, but Resistance was able to make this come out on first place, so able to get that regional win. Now what we can see here is that there are 4 Upamon eggs here and no other eggs, so just going with the 4 Upa eggs, which is something that will be a little bit not as common as we get through some of these lists. But looking at it, the thing about Rapidmon, and we're going to see when going through these lists, is a lot of this is very, very standard, and when it comes to the Digimon, there are very little variations and things that we're going to do. So we have the 4 Patamon, 3 Salamon, 6 or 7 rookies is usually where we're going to be sitting at. The 4 hybrids, the 4 Rapidmon, and the 4 Jet Sylphie. This is pretty much standard. Almost every single list that we're going to see is going to play this. Some lists will play one of these cards at maybe 3 of, but other than that, it's not that big of a difference. Pretty much all these lists do play these 4 cards at 4, and so you can definitely expect this when you're playing the build to have this. And if you're building it, you should probably be playing this because it's just going to up the consistency. But this is going to be essentially a staple in the list. Then we got the 2 Ophanimon here. I do really like the Ophanimon. It can give you a lot of value, being able to recover and pop. It does have the on deletion as well, which will be nice, but I don't think it's the craziest card. It is a nice mega. There are a couple other megas like the Seraphimon and whatnot, which can also give you recovery and potential deletion and stuff like that. So the level 6 slot here, we're going to see, does tend to be a little bit different sometimes in these slots. But coming up to the Susanoo, the 2 Susanoo is going to be the most common number. Some lists play 1 Susanoo, some lists play no Susanoos, but this one, the 2 Susanoo, is going to be very, very common here. So that's something to be expected of. That's going to make it so it has a higher consistency of being hit. If you security 1, then you still have the chance to get 1 in your deck, and since you're playing such a slow control style deck, you're going to be able to cycle through pretty much all of your deck here. Then going into the Tamers and options is where these decks usually tend to differ. These top cards up here are usually pretty standard. Once we get to the Tamers and the options, things are going to change up. But once we see here, we're just going with the 4 TK, 4 Zoe, and 4 Cody, so not opting to go with any of the new BT8 Kari or the TK Kari. So those are cards that are good, but these are kind of your main Tamers here. 4 TK is nice. That allows you to Digivolve on top of them and then be able to still have a memory tamer and not have to worry about getting rid of your only memory tamer. Zoe obviously is a fantastic consistency card, being able to search for the cards in your security that you don't want in there. And then Cody obviously is kind of the lifeblood for the Rapidmon deck, with the effect of being able to swing with a 2 color to get minus 2k. Be able to stack these up is going to be very nice. Obviously, you'll also be able to gain a bunch of memory. If you have 4 Codys out, you're going to be able to go to essentially 7 with TK right away, and so that's something that's going to be very hard for your opponent to play around. But I do like these tamer ratios. I do think that the TK Kari is nice, but there is so much recover in this list that a lot of times with these lists, you're going to actually have more security than your opponent. So I can see why it's not necessary, but I do like it. But these 4 here, or the 4 of these here, are going to be pretty standard. So I do like just having a nice, consistent tamer lineup here. Next up, we have 4 Eden's Javelin, so just going all in on the Edens here, being able to have that DP reduction, which is going to help versus a lot of other things like Armor Purge and whatnot, while also being able to get a draw, so a consistency card as well. And 6 memory is not that much, so not all the lists are going as hard on Eden's Javelin, but they went all the way in, and I think that's fine. And then the 3 Wyvern's Breath, so just having these 7 removal cards, which I feel like is kind of low, but a lot of these lists are going to be playing 5, 6, 7 removal cards, as opposed to like the 10, 11, 12 that we saw previously in other security control type lists. But 3 Wyvern's Breath is nice. It's going to be able to pop big things. As to our Eden's Javelins, a lot of times you're probably not going to be able to get rid of 12, 13k Digimon, but with Wyvern's Breath, you're easily going to be able to do that, so nice addition. Then we have Yellow Memory Boost, which is a card that a lot of these decks are going to opt to play, just a good consistency card. It's going to give you extra memory later so you can extend your turns or get that game-winning hybrid if you need it, but also just being able to search out essentially every Digimon in your deck outside of the Susanomon is going to be nice. And then finishing it off with the 1 Reinforced Memory Boost. I mean, all the lists are pretty much going to be playing this. It is restricted down to 1, so you can only play the 1, but it's such a strong card, and it works so well with this style of deck that there's really no reason not to play it. Alright, and then the next list that we're getting into got second at the TAC Games Regionals. Now, this one is got some interesting things for us here. Now, we have the 4 Upamon here. Now, the 2 lists that we've looked at so far do have the 4 Upamon. I actually tend to see the Cupamon a little bit more, so we'll have to see how the ratios line up with that. But then we have the 4 Patamon, 2 Salamon. The other list had 4 Patamon, 3 Salamon. I think the 4 Patamon, 2 Salamon is actually the more standard ratio. Most decks will probably have these 6 opposed to the 7th rookie with the 3rd Salamon here, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. But as far as standard goes, I think this is going to be the standard lineup for rookies. Then again, we have the 4-4-4 and the 4 Jet Sylphie here, but this time we are actually going to be having one of the Yellow Rise Greymon, which is very nice. You're going to be able to play out a Tamer for free, which is going to be good. Pretty much all of these Tamers here, you're okay with just playing for free and not getting the on-play. Zoe, sure, you want to get the on-play, but it's not as crazy as hitting the TK on-play. So being able to just play out a Tamer for free, especially like Cody, is going to be very nice. And then, surprisingly enough, we have 1 Shine Greymon. Now, obviously, Shine Greymon does work in lists like this because we do have so many Tamers. This list is playing 14 Tamers, so obviously you can get very big Shine Greymon clears, but I don't think it's very necessary in this deck because of just the other cards that you have, the Rapidmons and all of the option cards that you can play in here. I don't know if Shine Greymon is as crazy, but I do like it. I love Shine Greymon, obviously. It's just, I think this is the only list I've seen that's played Shine Greymon, so it's a little bit interesting to me. But they did get second place, so it obviously did have merit and did work in the metagame. So that'll be an interesting progression to see if we see more people picking up the Shine. And then 2 Ophanimon, again, kind of standard. 2 Susano, kind of standard. And then 2 Bokomon, which again, I feel like this is the only list I've seen that plays Bokomon as well, which makes this another interesting style list because Bokomon obviously is going to be very good. You have your 12 hybrids, you have 14 Tamers, so you have a lot of triggers to hit off of this to be able to search, and so it's going to be highly consistent, but I just don't know if you necessarily need it in this type of list, just because you're trying to play a little bit more control-y in the early game. But I don't think Bokomon's going to be bad. I'm just curious if the card slot is going to be worth it. That'll have to be something that we see if it picks up some popularity now that it did top the regional. See if people start taking it in, but I don't know if they will, just because if we look here, they only have 4 removal option cards, so you're having a little bit lower on removal option cards to go up in these Bokomons and the Shine and Rise, so we'll have to see. Tamers, the 4 TK, of course, like I said before, you want to be able to have your memory Tamer, 4 Zoe, 4 Cody. These were standards last time, but now we have the 2 TK cards, which again, I think is a very strong card, being able to suspend it to give the -1k, to be able to pair on top of the Cody, while also being able to have the effect to gain 2 memory if you have less security than your opponent. But there are times where you're going to have more security than your opponent, so unless your opponent's getting more aggressive than you and being able to go in early and you're not recovering as much, then this can be a dead card, but I do really like it, so I like seeing it here. Then option cards, 2 Eden's Javelin, 2 Wyvern's Breath as our removal options, so only 4, so very low there. The 1 Reinforce, of course, and then only 1 Yellow Memory Boost. Most of the lists play these at like 2 or 3, so this is just kind of a filler card, it looks like. It does add Search, but I feel like with the Bokomons and stuff, you kind of already have that. But I think the yellow is fine. You're going to be able to gain a little bit of extra memory later, and then you're going to be able to search something out. It's just, as a 1-of, it's going to be slightly inconsistent. Alright, now we're going to go back in time a couple months, and we're going to look at a list from Japan that was played in, it looks like, February. So right here we have the 3 Cupimon, 2 Upamon. This is something that I've seen quite a few lists do. I used to be a big 3-2 split egg fan back in like BT4, BT5. Since like BT6, I haven't really done that as much, and I've kind of strayed away from it because usually one egg is a little bit better than the other. But since they're so polar opposite of eggs, they do kind of supplement each other in a way to where if you are getting a lot of recovery, obviously the Cupimon's going to be good, but if you are going low, then the Upamon's going to be good. So 3-2 split, it does lower the consistency of one to up the consistency of other, but since you aren't 100% sure in each matchup if you're going to have more recovery or less recovery, or if your opponent's going to be more aggressive or whatever, then the split is fine. I don't think this is really that bad. Then we got the 4 Patamon, the 3 Salamon. We're going to see these in most of the lists, and actually have what I believe is the BT3 or BT2 Salamon here as a 1 of, when attacking, give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 1k DP. I don't think this card is really good at all. At 1k DP, it can get deleted very easily with things like TK Kari. Obviously, the Patamon will as well, but you're going to want to use this as your main Digivolution rookie. I don't know how strong I think this card is, taking up an extra slot that could be really anything else, but it is interesting that this was able to make it as in the deck, just because I feel like out of all of the cards that you could really play as a rookie, this one is kind of one of the weaker ones. Champions, we got the 4 Kazi, the 4 Zephyr, the 4 Rapid Standard, and then the 4 Jet Sylphie, of course. This list is going to be playing 2 of the BT1 Serafimon. I do love this card a lot. I'm not really sure which I think is more better, the Ophanimon or the Serafimon. I think they're both very different. They both obviously get to recover, but one is a little more aggressive, one is a little more defensive. And in a very defensive style deck, I think the Serafimon does work well because it's essentially a defensive card by being able to recover, but it also gives you the security attack +1, so you can actually get some aggression going. So I do like the Serafimon here. And then 2 Susanomon, again, fairly standard. Then getting into the Tamers, they are playing 16. They decided to go with the 4 TK, the 4 Cody, and the 4 Zoe, as we've seen with the other ones, but they're actually just going all in with the 4 TK Kari here. So that is going to be fairly interesting, because that means they're going to have to cut down on option cards. Looks like we got 1 Blinding Ray here. This one is an interesting tech. I don't think I've seen this in any other lists. I don't know if you necessarily need it, especially when you're playing 3 memory boosts here. I'd almost think this would be better as just another yellow memory boost, because you do have to trash one of your security, which really only helps with TK Kari. Yeah, I think it really only helps with TK Kari. But we also have the Tactical Retreat here as 2. I love Tactical Retreat, especially when you're playing the 4 Zoes, so you'll be able to do things like go into Jet Sylphie for 1, Tactical Retreat it down, play Zoe, and grab the Jet Sylphie back out so you can recover once again, and then the yellow memory boosts are fine. So I think this is interesting. I think the only thing that's really different from here is they went all in on the TK Karis, which is something that is also a little uncommon, but I think can be fairly powerful. All right, we are back to the card market regional here. So getting on into this, we have another list that has 3 Cupimon, 2 Upamon. Again, I don't think this is terrible. I think it's fine. I think this is kind of a player preference, and I don't think it's going to change. I don't think playing 4 and 1 here is going to change things enough to where you have to. If you want to play 3 and 2 and that's what works for you, I think it's going to be perfectly fine. 4 Patamon, 2 Salamon, fairly standard. 4, 4, 4, 4. Again, these are pretty much the standard slots right here. 2 Ophanimon, so kind of hitting that 2 Mega slot here. Again, some are playing Serafi, some are playing the Ophanimon here, and then 2 Susano. Now, getting on into the Tamers, we are playing the 4 Zoe and the 4 Cody, which is, again, kind of standard. We went down to 3 TK here, which I don't think is that bad. The 4 is fine. Again, like I said, it makes it so you can Digivolve on top of them so that you can still have your Tamer and keep going. And then we're going to have the 3 TK Karis here, so going a little bit lower, they're going with the 14 instead of 16 Tamers here, which is still a lot of Tamers, so I think this is fine. Now, looking at the options, we got the 3 Eden's Javelin, the 3 Wyvern's Breath. Just wanted to do a 3-3 with the removal option, and then we got 3 Yellow Memory Boost and 1 Reinforced Memory Boost as our memory gain, as well as some Searcher here as another recovery source. So do like this here. Instead of going a little bit lower on the removal options, which we've seen with some lists, I do like having the at least 6 here. Now, the last list we're looking at is from the Card Market Regional. It was fairly recent, so all these lists are kind of relevant to our current metagame. So 4 Patamon, 2 Salamon, fairly standard. Going with our 4, 4, 4, 4 once again. This time, though, we are only looking at 1 Mega in the Ophanimon and still 2 Susanomon. So a lot of these were playing 2, maybe 3 Megas, and we just cut down to 1. Not really looking to play with that game plan, wanting to go more so with the hybrids and the Susano plan. Now, looking at the Tamers, we are actually having 18 Tamers here. We are playing the 4, 4, and 3 Zoes, so went down to 3 Zoes. But we're actually playing 4 Kari of the BT8 Kari, so you'll be able to gain a little bit extra memory here. And then 3 of the TK Kari. So this is a very, very heavy Tamer lineup. You essentially had to cut something up in this area for sure to make room for this many Tamers. I don't know if you need 4 Karis. That does feel a little redundant. Obviously, yes, you'd be able to get a lot of extra memory through it, but you already have the Codys, you have the TK Kari, and then you have TK as your memory Tamer. So I think playing this at 4 might be a little excessive, but it is a strong card. Then we got 4 Wyvern's Breath, 2 Yellow Memory Boost, and 1 Reinforcing Memory Boost. So just using the 4 removal options, which again I feel like is kind of low, but again standard with the Memory Boost. Everybody wants to search an extra memory here. It's going to help with things like Susano, so just going with the 2-1 here. Alright, now we're here at the spreadsheet. We did go over like 17 deck lists, so now we're going to go ahead and go over some of the more notable numbers here and see what we can find. Starting off with the Digitama, the 4 Cupimon and the 1 Upamon was going to be the most common Digitama deck to play. Some of them did play the 3-2 as we see here, and a couple of lists only played 4 Upamon. I don't believe there was any just 4 Cupimon lists, but 4 Upamon and no 5th egg was a common thing, but the 4 Cupimon was the most common egg, and a lot of the times it was going to be paired with the 1 Upamon. Now, looking at the rookies here, the starter deck 3 Patamon was in 16 of the 17 decks. One of the decks did just decide to play 4 of the BT2 Salamon and not play any of the Patamon here. But as we can see, no list played 3, 2, or 1. They were all either 4 ofs or the one list that was 0 of. So this card is very strong. We've been seeing the price of this card rise up because it's so popular. And so it's very common to see here. We can kind of see why it's growing in price and stuff because it's so popular in this deck. It's so good in this deck that playing this at 4 is going to be fairly standard. There's nothing else really too crazy in the rookies outside of the Salamon. BT2 was most commonly played at 2 of, and so the 4-2 here was the most standard. 3 was close behind, and a couple playing it at 4, which felt very excessive, but 3 or 2 does seem very good, but 2 being the most common number. And then we do just have a couple splashes of other rookies in here. Now looking at the champions, we got Zephyrmon as a 4 of in all 17 decks. Kazimon and Rapidmon very close behind, but some people did choose to play 3 Kazimon in one list and 3 Rapidmon in one list, so they didn't quite make the 17 of 17, but it's still fairly standard that at this point these probably should just be all 17. The list that we looked at, we saw that there was very common just 4 Kaze, 4 Zephyr, 4 Rapid, 4 Jet Sylphie, and that was very common. And with the ultimates, Jet Sylphie, of course, in all 17 lists is a 4 of. It's kind of the main thing in Yellow Hybrid, so not playing this doesn't really make any sense. And then we did see that one list that was playing the 1 Rise Greymon there. It was the only list that decided to do so, but I do think it is an interesting tech. It does give you a little bit of offensive pressure with that inheritable, as well as being able to just get free value by playing out a Tamer for free, so we might see a little bit more of that, but Jet Sylphie definitely going to be sticking around. Then looking at the Megas, this was a little less variant than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to potentially see a couple more Megas than we did, but the 2 Ophanimon is going to be by far the most common Mega here. Playing this at 2, some played it at 1, one listed played at 3, but 2 Ophanimons was the most common, or 2 Seraphimon right behind it. It looked like playing the 2 Megas was the most common number here. Ophanimon did beat it out. It is a little bit more of a defensive card, but you can go with the Seraphimon for the little bit more aggressive card if you want to. Susanomon played as a 2 of in 15 of the lists, 1 of in one of the lists, and then no Susanomons in a list, but 2 Susanomon definitely seemed to be the standard. So many lists were playing this, and this felt almost as staple as the 4-4-4 with the Kaze, Zephyr, Rapidmon type stuff. It just always felt like there was those 4, the 4 Jet Sylphie and the 2 Susanomons always there. And so this is very common. If you're building this list or playing against this list, I would definitely expect to see the 15 or the 2 Susanos there. Now looking at the Tamers, I don't really think there's too many crazy things to take out of this. I think it's going to be fairly standard. Cody was in all 17 lists as a 4 of. Of course, that's kind of one of the reasons why this deck works, is being able to have that minus 2k DP. So this only makes sense here. You get minus 2k DP, you get extra memory. All that card's very good. TK was played at 4 of as at 15 decks, and then 3 of in 2 decks. So playing 3 or more TK is going to be the play. A lot of them chose to play 4 for highest consistency, extra search, being able to go on top with your hybrids and still have a memory tamer on top and stuff like that. But some did decide to play it at 3, which is usually where I play in most non-yellow hybrid lists. I think that's kind of the correct TK number, but when you're playing a list like this, I think the 4 can be good. Looking at Zoe, the difference between 3 and 4 was very close. The 3 count did beat it out by 1, but 3 or 4 seems so close that I don't think this is really going to change. If you choose to play 4, I don't think it's going to be a lot better than 3. If you play 3, I don't think it's going to be a lot better than 4, because we saw lists being able to top with both counts, and it was almost 50-50. TK Kari, interestingly enough, is the most common as a 3 of. When I was going through all these lists, lists and putting all the numbers in, there was a lot of lists where TK Kari wasn't even present, and so this kind of shot up at towards the end of being more common. But as we can see, TK Kari most common as a 3 of here at 9, splashed in at 4 and 2, and then there was lists that just played it at 1, which I think is fine. All these numbers I think are fine. It's really personal preference. TK Kari is so good. 4 might be a little bit much, but I think 2-3 is going to be pretty good as the sweet spot. I think the biggest thing for me is the Kari Kamiya count. Only 3 decks playing Kari from BT8, and only 1 at 4, 1 at 1, and 1 at 2. So this was a little bit different for me because I expected this to be a 2 of in a lot of decks when first going into it. I thought this was going to be a card that people played more. There's a lot of recover and stuff, being able to get that going, but it looks like a lot of lists did opt to just not play it at all. We did see the list that played it at 4. They went all the way in. I do think that 4 is much. I think 2 or 3 is good. Like I said, I think I was expecting 2 ofs, but that just wasn't the case, so this was probably the biggest surprise for me. And then Purple Kari was played as a 3 of in 2 different decks. I think this is fine. I like Purple Kari. It's one of the few cards that can really disrupt your opponent on your opponent's turn, and being able to have multiple of them out makes things very annoying for your opponent, especially against decks like Imperial or Armor Rush, stuff like that. And so I do like this card here. And then interestingly enough, we did have the 1 Digimon Emperor. I don't know how I feel about this card yet. I think it's a card that can be good, but can also be kind of bad. And I really haven't decided on that, but it was interesting to see it played in here. Now looking at the options, as we can see by all the cards here, this was going to be the most diverse section of cards here. Eden's Javelins, Wyvern's Breath, Yellow Memory Boost, and Reinforced Memory Boost seem to be in just about every deck. Reinforced Memory Boost, 17 out of 17 decks played it at its 1, of course. I feel like that makes sense. Wyvern's Breath and Yellow Memory Boost, both at 10 decks with the 3 count. I don't think all of the 10 decks were the same decks, but very common here to play 3 Wyverns and 3 Yellow Memory Boost, so we'll probably see that going up, staying the same. I could see Wyvern's Breath moving up, maybe down. I think the 3 Yellow Memory Boost will probably stay there. I think with Memory Boost, 2 to 3 is usually good for a lot of decks like this, but since this is a slower deck, you can definitely easily get away with playing 3. So I think this will stay fairly standard. Eden's Javelin, which was a card that I thought was going to be picking up a lot more steam, and I think it will in this near future, but it just hasn't picked up quite as much as I thought it would. Just playing it at a little bit lower account, these cards here seem to be a little bit more popular than the Eden's Javelin, but I do think this is going to go up in popularity just because it is going to be fairly good. The minus DP reduction is going to be fairly strong here. A couple interesting things here. Only 2 decks playing Holy Flame. I had a lot of people talking about main decking Holy Flame, so with only 2 of them topping, it's very interesting for me. I don't know if that's just because it doesn't caught on, or if people are maybe overhyping it. It's going to be one of those 2 things, but this was only 2 decks playing it, and this was very surprising to me. Definitely probably one of the most surprising things, because I expected this to be almost staple with how much I've been hearing people talk about Holy Flame, but only playing it in 2 decks as a 2 of, but when this does come out of security, I'm sure it's very strong. Randomly 1/7's Heaven. I don't really think this card is good at all. I wouldn't recommend playing this, but Tactical Retreat I would. I think Tactical Retreat is very strong. A card that's definitely slept on, especially when you're playing the yellow hybrid with Zoe package. You can make very cool combos by Tactical Retreating and then going in with Zoe to bring back the Jet Sylphie, so that way you can get even more recover when you need to do things like that. Or if you're just in a tough bind, you're about to go down, your opponent has a lot of aggression, you can just for 1 memory Tactical Retreat, put something on the field on top, then you got another security check right there to keep you alive going in and try to stabilize to when you can recover a little bit more. And then these options down here, the Blinding Ray, the Win Rate, and the Schwartz, I don't think these are going to be good. I think Blinding Ray is actually just bad. Win Rate I don't think really makes any sense. I don't think you need to play it. You don't want to really trash cards. The reducing cost to go into something like Ophanimon isn't going to be that crazy. This is basically for Susano, which I don't think it's that good, but somebody did play it top with it, that's fine, but I don't think it's going to be something that catches on. And the 1 Schwartz is interesting because the deck that played this, the only purple cards in there, I believe, were the BT4 Kari and the Ophanimon, so the consistency of having the purple source, if you don't find your Karis, is going to be pretty low, so this could be a potential dead card, so playing it at 3 is very interesting, but it's obviously one of those cards where if you have like 6-7 Tamers out and they hit this in security, their board's gone. So I don't actually think Schwartz is that bad, but I don't think it's consistent, and usually inconsistency is usually a bad thing, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but I do know that it did work. I think it is something that's an option that you can play, but it is going to be inconsistent, so if you choose to try and play this, keep in mind that this might be an inconsistent option for you compared to something like Wyvern's Breath or Eden's Javelin. So yeah, this is going to be the spreadsheet. Again, if you want to go over this, it's going to be linked in the comment down below. You are feel free to go ahead and use this. Go and check it out, and I hope it brings you some sort of value here. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I'll see you here in a couple days where I go over a couple more decks. Let me know if there's any specific archetypes that you would like me to go over, any meta decks you'd like to see break down, like anything like that. But with that being said, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, because I'm going to be bringing you even more BT8 content, Digimon content, all of that. But I'll catch you all next time. I hope you have a fantastic day. Peace out.